I'm Paul from Trending Who, What, Where, and When. Today, I will be speaking with the author, Dr. Jenny Grant Rankin, about her book, Increasing the Impact of Your Research. She will be joining us from Laguna Beach, California.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jenny Grant Rankin, here talking to you from my home in Laguna Beach, California. And I'm going to talk to you about my latest book, my 12th book. It's called Increasing the Impact of Your Research. And it's all about how you can get out there and share what you know. Go on NPR, give a TED Talk, get in the news media, anything you want to do to get your voice heard.
I love the sculpture that's up above your head from the ceiling.
Well, as you can guess from the book, I'm very nerdy, and I love anything that's like a professor's study, these random things. And so it's a beach house, but usually a beach house has the cute little, blue beach this, beach that. And instead, I got this replica of a beluga whale from the San Diego Natural History Museum. It's 10.5 feet. And it's an exact replica. So this hangs from my living room ceiling. It's funny when I walk on the beach a lot, and when I go down there, I'll run into people that live, maybe neighbors I just haven't met yet. And we want to know, what is that? Is it an alligator? Is it a dinosaur? Like, what is that? I guess it's sort of the talk of the neighborhood.
Your book was so informative. I was so amazed at how organized it was.
Oh, thank you.
You must have put a lot of work into that.
I did. And it's my 12th one, but if you count, 4 of those are books where I just authored a chapter, and it was some professors did this project, and each of us did a chapter, but it's my 8th one just on my own. And so I feel like each one's better than the one before, because you just that extra practice. But I've really become fascinated with the best ways to share information. And so I'm really big on organization. And I am anyway. Like, I'm so type A, everything's color coded in my closet. Like, even my bookshelves back there, they have their main categories are the signs on the outside, but every shelf has a little sign, and everything's alphabetized, and every shelf has a sign of like a subcategory. Like, it's not just history, it's American history or world history or Civil War or pirates or like whatever it is. I really like to organize information so that you can get to what you need really quickly.
I'll start then by asking our question about the travel, seeing as we are a travel guide. Tell our followers your favorite spots in and around Laguna Beach where you would take them if they came to visit.
Yes. And this, I have to say, I've got some good answers on this because I was born here, raised here. So I've seen the town evolve, and I feel like I've seen every little corner. And my favorite places, there are 3 that I would say. One, Heisler Park, and that's long been a go-to place to visit. And it's just north of Main Beach, which is the town's main beach you see when you drive into town. And it has views all the way down the coastline. And it's just this meandering path that follows the cliffs. And you see all these little beach coves along the way. And there are picnic spots. There are telescopes, that you can look at, or binoculars rather, that you can look out on the town. And you can find it so easy to just find a little nook to yourself. It doesn't have that overwhelmed by tourists feeling. So Heisler Park, and then something really similar that's at the other end of town. There was a resort built called the Montage, and it was built above Treasure Island Beach, where they actually filmed Treasure Island back in the 30s. And one of the deals the Montage made with the city, it's this beautiful resort, is that they had to keep all the trails along the cliffs open. So it's a lot like Heisler Park, but a totally different view. And the seals station themselves on, it's called Gough Island, but it's actually attached to the beach there. And they're so close that volunteers stand there to be sure you don't get too close to the seals, but you can see the seals. And then if from there you just walk a little bit south, you'll see Laguna Beach's most photographed spot ever, and it's Victoria Beach. And if you go around this little rocky corner of it, there's what they call the Pirate Tower, which is at least 100 years old, but it was really built as a staircase against the cliff, but it only attaches to the cliff really at the top. So it looks like a standalone tower. And if you take a photo there, you get the tower and then you get Laguna Beach's whole coastline just winding down behind you, just laid out, you know, each of the little coves. It's the perfect shot of the town.
So what inspired you to become a writer?
Oh, I always loved to write. When I was a kid, I was always writing, but I was writing more. I always loved fantasy and Dungeons and Dragons and that sort of thing. So I was always for fun writing fiction. But when I became a junior high school English teacher and I started teaching English, I just got so passionate about my career and about making a difference for students. And I would uncover new information throughout my career, but then also when I got my first doctorate, my Ph.D, and I conducted a study and I got these findings. And so many people, they get their Ph.D and it's check off the box, they've got their degree, they're done. And for me, I thought, you know, I have this information and this can help students. And we know that students really need help, you know, and our education system has a long way to go. And we've got a lot of wonderful teachers working really hard, but some students continue to be underserved. And I was just so passionate about getting that information out there. And so the fact that I always loved to write and had a knack for writing, it really blended well with this passion for getting information out there that could help people. And so I just was off and running, wrote my first books, and that was about 6 years ago. And now I'm 12 books in. So I've been writing up a firestorm.
What inspired you to make the 12th book? What made you decide to do that topic?
Yeah, it's funny. This one in particular, when I first started out, my niche and my books were really about the best ways to share education data, because we use data in education, but we've got a long way to go in terms of people finding it easy to use and not intimidating, and make it really clear and understandable. And I wrote some other books in the education topic realm, but the last book, which was for educators, how to share their knowledge with the world. And then this one that stepped out of just educators and is researchers, how to get their information out into the world. It really came from my journey to get my knowledge out there. And it's funny because when you watch the news, only 9% of the time, and this was a really extensive study of all major networks, cable news networks, when they put education experts on the air and they say this is an expert, it isn't really. Only 9% of the time does that person have any education experience, or does that person have any advanced degree in education? And that's just one field, but it's the same in other fields as well. We're not always the best, particularly academics. We're not always the best at getting our information out there. And we see that with a range of topics where scientists have known about it for 70 years and it's been published in academic journals, but the public hasn't known, you know, and then public opinion informs what politicians stand for, and that informs what policies are made. You know, it's so important that when we have knowledge, we get it out there. And there's such easy ways to say, get on the news. I mean, they have databases where anybody can put their name in it. It takes 5 minutes to put your name in the database, maybe 10 minutes, right? And journalists from all these top publications and broadcasts, they just do a search, you know, keywords, they find you and they reach out to you. And next thing you know, you're on the news, you're in newspapers, in magazines. So there are lots of easy ways to get your information out there that don't take too much time on your end, but you just have to know what those are. And that's the trick. And that's what I was excited to get out there, so that good ideas and good information can get shared.
I saw the eResources web link that you included with the book. That's an incredible source of information.
Thank you. Thanks. And I've been doing that for a while. And it was initially my publisher's idea, like, I don't know, maybe 5 books ago, 6 books ago, where, and well, part of it, I think also came from the fact that I'm so verbose, as you can tell, and I say so much. And I do the same thing when I write, and I end up with, you know, here's the word count I need to hit for a book. And I end up here because I have all this stuff I want to share. And so my publisher had this great idea. Well, why don't we just take some of that and make those free online resources, and then anybody can use them. And then even people who don't buy the book, you can get these resources. And lots of times that's sort of a step into the book's content as well. But it's nice too, because there are a lot of things where, I mean, I love to read a book, and obviously these are all also on Kindle and that kind of thing, but I love to have my hands on a book. But some stuff you do want to have on your computer, like these lists of opportunities that I have. You want to save it on your computer so you can track the ones you apply. Let's say it's the awards. Which awards did you apply for? You can sort it by deadline and know, well, when is that deadline coming up? And that kind of thing, or sort by category. Some stuff is just really nice to have electronically.
It was so organized. I could go in and easily see how you accomplish some of these things by using those databases.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I built those up, like those opportunity lists. There are about 2,000 opportunities there. And I built that up just because I was really passionate about applying for different opportunities that allowed me to have that soapbox to get my information out there. And so I just started tracking everything. I'm very type A, and it's just put out there so that other people can use it too, without having to do all the work of looking everything up on the internet. And let's say it's conferences. Well, where does it usually take place? When does it usually take place? When do you apply? Where do you go to apply? There's so many details where if you just have it ready made and you can sort by different categories, it makes it so much easier.
So you must use those frequently.
I do. Yeah, they're just part of my regular, hey, what's coming up? Where, what might I want to submit information for, or a paper for a journal, in anything.
I think you'd be a really good spokesperson for social media. You seem to have such good success with it.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. It's funny. Social media, it came on us so quickly, and those of us that are in a position where we really need to be using it professionally, we aren't natives to social media. That age group, the ones who are much better at social media aren't necessarily at a part of their career where it's so, it's so necessary. The bulk of us, I should say, we're less familiar with it. And so, I knew it was really important that I get up to speed, like those in our younger generations are so fantastic about it. So I just jumped in, and I just kept reading about it. I read a lot of studies about social media because I wanted to do it correctly. I didn't want to just, I think this is the best time to post and post at those times. I wanted to know, okay, what studies were conducted that actually found, what the best times to post were, and just things like that. And because I'm so busy, I loved finding tools where I could write one post, for example, and it would blast out to all my social media accounts. And sure, it's better if I'm in there, working each account, but I just don't have that time because I have the rest of my career. So I was really excited to uncover those tools. And also the tools on branding, for example, in Twitter, how you can see not just the analytics, which are fantastic, but the fact that in Twitter, you can see what lists other people have put you on. And then you get this fantastic sense of your brand, because they're titling these lists whatever they think you're all about. And so you get to see, oh, okay, I'm putting out more of this information. Maybe I really wanted to put out more of this, or maybe I'm hitting the nail on the head. It's such important feedback you can get from those tools.
I think you made good use of their search features, because I saw that you use search in landing a recurring opportunity at the University of Cambridge.
Yes, yeah, that all came about because of social media. I had found on Twitter that there was an opening. They were looking for a lecturer for the postdoc masterclass, and so I followed the link from Twitter, and it went to Facebook. So I was able to read. I had that my Facebook account, and it gave information on how to apply. And I already had established an online presence. I had my website, so I knew that if they looked me up, they'd get some quality information in my CV, like a resume up there. And I had also stepped outside my comfort zone and given what started as a TEDx talk and became a TED talk. And they specifically asked in the the job description, they wanted a TED Talk kind of speaking style. And then I applied and I got that recurring gig, though I have to say during COVID, it has not been happening. I'm definitely on lockdown here in California, but I hope to return to Cambridge again. I love England. And so we'll see once the pandemic abates a bit. But yeah, that all came about from just having those different accounts out there, really. So even if you don't use social media a lot, just to even have the accounts where people can find you is so powerful.
You also mentioned that you use the advanced search to do something with PBS.
Oh yes, there you can find so many opportunities, and one of the common hashtags is JournoRequest. It's like the start of the word journal, right? But an O instead of AL, and then request. And sometimes they do the same thing with an S on the end. And journalists and broadcast like PBS, they put these postings out there so frequently saying, "Hey, I need somebody for a story," and that hashtag's particularly popular in the UK, but it's really spread. You get a lot from the US, Canada, Australia. You see a lot of other countries starting to use it more too. And you could even do the search, you could do the journal request hashtag, and then you could add your field. Let's say you work in science or whatever it is, or you work in astronomy. You could just add that, or let's say you have a new rap album, whatever it is, add that, and then just check it to see if stuff ever pops up that's filtered in that way. And even if you don't use the journal request hashtag, you doing searches for things like looking for, need an expert in, we'll pull up all kinds of things.
You also had a whole section about how to do press releases on your media page. I thought that was extremely good.
Oh, thank you. Still to this day, journalists, when surveyed, say that press releases are the number one way they want to know about new findings, new news, new events, whatever it is that's newsworthy. So most journalists tend to really love them. And more the younger journalists are more reaching out in social media and these other ways. But usually the journalists who've been around a long time, they're usually in those higher positions and they have more say on, they're more likely to be able to put something in print for a publication instead of just online. So you really want to appeal to both of those types of journalists. And a press release, you can put all your important details in there. It's really short. They prefer just one page. So it doesn't, it's not a huge investment like writing a paper of your time. And then you can send those out and they receive them in different ways. But like the Associated Press, 50% of the world population sees some Associated Press content daily. It's that, prevalent because they push their stories out to other news sources and whatnot. And on their website, you just go to their website and it shows how they want to receive press releases. And if they like what they see, a story can go with them. It can get spread to all these other publications and go big really quickly.
Quite a bit in your book about writing that you might want to tell us about.
Oh, sure. I think some of the key things with writing, and now even though I have a passion for writing fiction, all my books are nonfiction. And some of the key things that I think to have a successful book or even a successful newspaper article or whatever it is that people really need to land is organization, chunking the information, having headings and subheadings, because people are more busy today than ever before, and their tolerance for a lot of text is very low, and their attentions are scaled back. And so lots of people will just be skimming your content for what they need, and you just need to make it really easy on them. And so if you can organize something really well, that's a huge asset. And then two, knowing what to not put in there. For example, I go wild. I want to share all this information, but I need to know, okay, some of this I'm going to put online as an e-resource. Or if I'm writing, let's say I'm just writing a blog post, let's say I use a term that maybe not everybody understands, but I don't want to bog down my article with an explanation. I can just make that term hyperlink to a page somewhere where that's defined. And it doesn't even have to be defined by me, but it allows me to keep my writing streamlined and not too bogged down with text. And that keeps the content more accessible. So knowing what to pull out and where to put it is key, and organization's really key.
Your book also had a section on speaking, which I think you've done a lot of speaking. You could tell us about how that would help people getting
Yeah.
their information out.
Well, so many people, I mean, we always hear that fact about people are more scared of public speaking than they are of dying because people are so terrified of it. But really, the two, writing and speaking, whichever you want to do, they complement each other so well. And each one leads to jobs for the other. Like, I get plenty of calls where somebody's read one of my books or one of my articles, and they want me to come out and give a keynote. And then on the flip side, because of the public speaking, people hear about your ideas and then they want to read your book or read your article. So they really complement each other. And it also allows you to hit this wide range of viewers. The way our brains are designed is we're constantly trying to filter out what's not important and what not to remember. And something that makes content more memorable is when we hear it or see it in a variety of different places, because our brain starts to say, oh, wow, that's all around, that's something I need to pay attention to. And so I sometimes tell the story about my friend Steve, who he worked on the team at CERN in Geneva that discovered the Higgs boson. And I met him when we were giving what started as TEDx talks. And I saw him give, here he's this busy physicist, right? And I saw him giving this TED talk. And then I get home and I turn on 60 Minutes, one of my favorite shows. And there's Steve sitting down talking about the discovery of the Higgs boson. And then just within that week or so, I'm going through my email and I get these TED Ed emails where they do cartoons of scientific information for kids. And there he's narrating this cartoon. He's in all these different places, but it allows his really scientific content to reach all types of readers. Like, he was saying on 60 Minutes that they put out a video of the Higgs discovery, and within 1 week, 1 billion people had watched that video. And they're not 1 billion astrophysicists in the world, but people have this interest in different knowledge. So often there's an audience out there that we might not even imagine. But if we really are putting ourselves out there with speaking in all these different environments and in writing in all these different ways, we can reach such a wide audience. And that's when information really, really goes viral, like people like to say.
That was an incredible statistic, that number. I was so impressed with that.
Yeah, wasn't that wild? I remember he was talking to Leslie Stahl, I remember, in 60 Minutes, and told her that. I thought that was incredible because people they love information.
Could you tell us a little bit about your speaking coach, Danny Slomoff?
Yes, I got to work with him two or three times before I did the TED Talk, and he was so helpful. He taught me some things that to this day I use and I'll never forget. And I was new when I did the TEDx talk. I was new to public speaking. I'd been teaching for a long time, but that was first time up on a big stage, and now I've been doing it ever since. I've caught the bug and definitely perfected my skills more. But he taught me a couple things. One, as a woman, I always want to put people at ease. It's, we get this societal pressure, not to be intimidating. And I tend to smile a lot, just I'm a people pleaser and put people at ease, which is fine if we're having a casual conversation. But I had my talk planned where I was giving stats that involved deaths and really tragic information. And I had this frozen smile on my face. And he said, Jenny, you have to, when you're speaking, your expressions, you need to match the content of what you're saying. You need to drop whatever your nervous habits are, smiling and really go with the emotion of what you're saying. And that was a great strategy. He told me to look at, not to scan, some people say scan the audience, but then you just end up kind of, you're not connecting with anyone. And he taught me to just pause for maybe a sentence, maybe a phrase, and look at one person and say it, and then look at another person and say it. And that's another great skill. And he taught me about how to carry my body, like not to make it not to cross over, because that makes this sort of insecure thing, but to keep my body open. If I'm sort of facing this way and I'm going to turn like this, not to use that outside leg, because then I'm kind of crossing over myself, but turn very openly. Really incredible strategies. He's phenomenal. He works with like top CEOs at top firms, and yeah, he's fantastic.
Your book also talked about connecting. You had a chapter about that.
Yeah, and I called it connecting because so often, I mean, I would hear that word networking and I would just, because we've all met those people where they come up and talk to you and it's so clear they just want something, or they just want to shove some information down your throat. It's all about them. And so that word, I just have this, but it's so important to connect with other people. And I think that if you go into it with just this outlook, I want to be helpful. I want good information. I'm just as happy to help the person I'm talking to as I am to share the information that I have that might help them. And it's just all about helping. And I think when you have that attitude, then you make very authentic connections. And they're the type that aren't just someone's name in a Rolodex where they, in this very sterile, they're true friendships. I've met some incredible people around the world that they're truly friends. We've connected, say, at a conference, or maybe we're both on the same panel, or whatever it is. And we've really developed a true friendship because we're just passionate about getting good information out there and about helping people in general. And when you have that attitude, people also, they don't misjudge you as, ooh, what's she after? What's he looking for? I think it's they embrace you because they know you just want to make the world a better place. You just want to cooperate and help. And it's a totally different kind of connection than that stereotype of networking.
You also speak about honors in your book.
Yeah, it's funny in the two fields that I've really come from, education and academia, research. Both of those, and I'm sure other fields out there too, sometimes there's this sort of this unspoken disdain for somebody applying for an award, or but when you do that, you're just given another platform, and it's another chance for exposure for your ideas. It's not about you, it's about your ideas. And so I think it's really important to apply for honors, and it doesn't have to take too long. Like I have that spreadsheet of awards out there. You can sort it and say, okay, well, what's coming up this month, and see if any of those apply. But when you apply, even if you don't win, the reviewers that are reading your information, maybe that's information they can use. Maybe that's going to help them. Maybe they're going to tell somebody about your work. But it's just another route to exposure and to getting good information out into the world. And so it's something that I encourage. I hate that it has such a stigma. And I should say too, I don't just apply, and I haven't applied for a while. I haven't been working on some other things, but I'll go through those phases, where I'll apply for honors. But I'll also send in other people's information. There are colleagues of mine, friends, people I know who are doing incredible work. And lots of times the application process, it's really short. And I already have the last award I applied for them, and I have their resume, and I can just copy paste stuff, and I'll apply for other people to get their voices heard too, because there are a lot of incredible voices out there with great information that aren't being heard, that aren't being invited onto panels and whatnot.
Would you share with us any advice that you would have for new writers?
Oh, sure. One, I would say, a big one is to ignore the naysayers. And that can be the voice in your own head, a voice from someone from your past, or it can be someone right there in front of you. I know that when I was writing my first book, I was so excited about it, getting the information out there. And I didn't know anybody I didn't know any editors. I just sent it out cold. And my husband at the time, he said, "Why are you wasting your time on that? Nobody knows who you are. You're a nobody. That's never going to get published. You're a nobody." And it would have been so easy for me to kind of crawl back, into my shell. But I thought, no, this information has to get out there. It's really important. I was very passionate about it. And so I sent it off, and I think it was the second publisher. I had success, and that whole all these 12 books. I mean, none of that could have happened if I had listened to the naysayers. And I also, for those who write nonfiction, I have a little bit of a trick that I like to share, that I learned. I didn't do this trick because by the time I learned it, I had already published books. But I think it would have been a great way in, is that many publishers, they don't want to take a chance on a first-time author. And it's kind of like that. It's a catch-22, right? How can you get a book out there if they don't want to get a book out there for someone who doesn't already have a book out there? But in the area of academic writing, there are a lot of book projects where professors take on a book project because their own study findings aren't necessarily ready for publication, but they need to publish something and it needs to be quality. And so they put out these searches for authors to write just one chapter each. And it's basically the same as a journal paper, but instead of it being in a journal, it's in a book. And my favorite is IGI Global. You can search their site and change the drop-down menu, not call for journal papers, but change it to call for book chapters. And you can send in a quality paper that's written just like a college essay. It's well written, and it definitely has to be high quality. But then once that book comes out, then you're a published book author. You can tie your name to it on Amazon, right? You can set up an author page on Amazon, and now you're getting that author, image, that author profile out there. And when you do apply for a full-length book manuscript, now you're much easier for a publisher to take a chance on. So that's one sort of way in I recommend in the nonfiction vein of it. It's funny, even though the book, the last one that was like this was for anyone in education, teachers, you didn't have to be a researcher. And this one's for researchers. But it's funny how it does apply no matter what the field is. And I find, for example, when I get reporter queries, because you can sign up for free to get these emails sent to you where reporters are saying, "Hey, I'm doing a story on this and I need an expert on this." And they come in from all different fields. So I'm constantly forwarding these to, my dietitian friend and my realtor friend, and, sending these off because it's funny how the same strategies, they really do cross over.
Hmm, that's interesting. Okay, so you share this with people. That'd be nice.
I do, yeah, a lot. Malcolm Gladwell talks about this type of person that loves sharing information, this kind of nerdy, and it's called a maven, and that's me to a T. I love to share information.
Your book was so interesting. We did marketing for trade shows for a long time. A lot of things in the book that would have been useful.
Oh, thank you.
Organization skills would have been useful.
Well, thank you so much. This has been such an honor. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time, reading the book, and just all your thoughtful feedback. And
the book was great. I've read parts of it more than once because I went back, I thought, did I get that correctly? And I wanted to make sure that I had it correct.
Yeah.
And it's a very informative book.
Oh, thank you. And it does work well as a reference tool to go back to, to look something up in the index or, yeah. So I hope it brings you lots of help over the years. So I'm just to share that I'm really honored to be here, and I love what you're doing.